So Paradise Lost, books 4 and 9 and 10 for this week. So last week I gave you guys the intro to Milton's Hell, right? Milton's Heaven as well. We talked about stuff like, should you feel sympathy for the devil? Did God create the devil to fail? Did God set up the devil just to fail? Did God create mankind just to fail? And we asked theological questions like, why can the devil not be redeemed, but why can mankind be redeemed? So we went into politics about the construction of Paradise Lost, right? How a lot of it is about the England that could have been, according to Milton. Right, Milton did not like monarchy in England, so there's that element to it as well. So that's just a bit of recap. This week, oh God, there's almost too much to cover with a span of 2 hours. We get the introduction to Milton's Eden. So we get Eden in 2 different stages here. We get Eden pre-fall, right? And we get Eden after the fall. So what's Eden like as a place before and after the fall? That's something that we have to consider today. The animals in Eden are interesting. Even like Adam and Eve's relationship is interesting. So that's on the table for today. Discussing Adam and Eve are on the table for today, especially with how I'm especially going to introduce Eve. We're especially going to get heavy into Eve's character today. You got you ladies in the class know you're blamed for what Eve did, right? Still to this day, right? So we'll talk about that. So we also have to talk about the devil's arc. What happened with Satan in book 4, 9, and 10, right? What happened with the serpent? That's going to be another. Milton divorces the devil from the serpent, right? We get in this version of the tale, the devil sort of possesses the serpent, right? The big snake's kind of like up and walking around in Eden. Right? So what's up? God punishes the snake too, right? He punishes the snake for the snake being possessed, which is kind of strange. So lots to dive into. So where to begin then? Where do you guys want to kick us? Where do you guys want to start? You guys want to start with the devil or with Adam and Eve?
Let's go with Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. Right. So we get. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about whether you still think Satan is still the protagonist of this thing after having been introduced to Adam and Eve. But we get a lot into their characters here, especially Eve. Last week, I mentioned that I can give you guys the question, did God set up the devil just to fail? Right. So we get a lot of interesting stuff here with Adam and Eve and their relationship. One passage, so I'm kind of going to automatically go into the text here because I want to introduce this passage and we'll talk about the implications of it. But in book 4, around line, let me see, it's about line 450 or so, book 4, line 450 or so. Eve discusses what her creation was like. Right? She discusses her creation. So this is a key passage to this whole thing. So let's see, find a good line to start on. So around line 450, it says, "That day oft remember when from sleep I first awaked and found myself reposed under a shade on flowers, much wondering where and what I was, whence thither brought and how. Not distant far from thence, a murmuring sound of waters issued from a cave and spread into a liquid plain, then stood unmoved, pure as the expanse of heaven. I thither went with unexperienced thought and laid me down on the green bank to look into the clear, smooth lake that to me seemed another sky. As I bent down to look, just opposite, a shape within the watery gleam appeared, bending to look on me. I started back, it started back, but pleased I soon returned, pleased it returned as soon with answering looks of sympathy and love. There I had fixed mine eyes till now, and pined with vain desire, had not a voice thus warned me, what thou seest, what there thou seest, fair creature, is thyself. With thee it comes and goes. Follow me, and I will bring thee where no shadow stays, the coming in thy soft embraces. He whose image thou art, him thou shalt enjoy inseparably thine. To him shall bear multitudes like thyself, and thence be called mother of human race. What could I do but follow straight, invisibly thus led, till I spied thee, fair indeed, and tall, under a platon, yet methought less fair, less winning soft, less amiably mild than that smooth watery image. Back I turned. Thou following cried out, "Return, fair Eve. Whom fliest thou? Whom thou fliest, of him thou art, his flesh, his bone. To give thee being, I lent out of my side to thee, nearest my heart, substantial love to have thee by my side. Henceforth an individual solace dear. Part of my soul, I seek thee. Thee claim my other half. With that thy gentle hand seized mine, I yielded, and from that time see how beauty is excelled by manly grace, and wisdom which alone is truly fair." So that passage I just read you, this goes back to Greek mythology, right? You guys know the word narcissism, right? It goes back to the story of Narcissus from Greek mythology. Narcissus looks into the lake and sees a reflection and falls in love with her own reflection, right? So hence the term narcissist today. So at the very minute of Eve's creation, right, she falls more in love with her own reflection here, right, than she does Adam, right? She's like, "Oh, Adam's tall and all, but he ain't got nothing on me," right? So the question that I raise here, and remember the devil appeals to her vanity here, right? Whenever he's trying to get her to eat the apple. The question I raise here is, was she set up to fail? Right? She has this inner quality, right? She's very prideful. She's very narcissistic, perhaps, because she falls in love with her own reflection, right? Do you guys think that this is God even setting her up to fail by even giving her that quality of being vain, of being narcissistic? So I'll let you guys take it from there. What do you think? Why did Milton tell the story this way, where Eve falls in love with her own reflection? One of y'all kick us off. What do you think?
I think he wanted to show that she was weaker than what Adam was. And by showing vanity, it also showed her weaknesses, that she was more in tune to what she wanted. It was her way or no way. So when she ate from the tree, then he knew that Adam would also eat because he wanted to protect her. He needed to protect her.
Right. So it shows Adam's strength of character, right, compared to her, or maybe.
I saw a lot of like you know how women had no power or whatever. I saw a lot of that while I was reading this, and like and Milton's depiction of Eve. She was very weak and I don't want to weak and codependent and like just not today, not a powerful woman. She was like, I could see that in the time that this was written, that the women coming out in it. You get what I'm saying? Like I can't, I'm having trouble. I'm tired. I just got off work.
Yeah, I mean, it's the passage I just read that built on your comment there, right? It says that she's led by the invisible hand of God. She submits to Adam there, she says.
Yeah, like it was a lot of men are in control. Follow by your husband, do what your husband says. Like the male is the male is in control. I'm trying to think of what it says in the Bible, like anyway, like if anybody's been married and counseled by a preacher or whatever, they go through this, and it's not, you don't bow down to your man, but you submit to your man. There you go. The submissive nature of women is how I got the way that Eve was written, Milton. But then in the same breath, you were supposed to think that she was wanting more knowledge, and she was very curious, and she was tempted by the devil was tempted her. I don't know. It was odd. It was very back and forth to me reading it.
Yeah, it's interesting you point out there, like, should she be a submissive woman or a strong woman? In book 9, before the temptation, right, she and Adam have a little spat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Adam's kind of clingy here, right? He's like, okay, the angel, just to give you guys a little bit of context in between book 4 and book 9, since I didn't have you read 5, 6, 7, or 8. In book 5 and 6, an angel comes down and tells Adam about what actually happened up in heaven with the war in heaven and whatnot. So the angel comes down and tells him that and gives him a warning, like, hey, this angel is in the garden. He's out to tempt you. Don't eat from that tree, right? So we kind of get that warning from the angel. Well, the very next day, as we start with in book 9, Eve gets up, and Adam's like, hey, stick with me. That way we can be strong. That way we don't get tempted, right? She's like, I need my space, man. Right? You're killing me over here, right? Yeah, get out of my shit, right? well, give me some room to breathe over here, right? You're very clingy, right? So, Adam grants her that, right? And then what happens, right? She gets tempted and eats.
Also liked a lot too that the devil was very mesmerized by her. Like he was very taken in by watching Eve and I don't know if it said like the human beauty. It made him very jealous, and he started wondering. It made him think about what he had done. It made him start thinking about what he had done. But yeah, you started to feel sorry for him again just a little bit, and then you were like, what? Like then he just showed his whole true colors. But he did have a thinking moment where he asked himself if he should ask the Lord for forgiveness.
Right. Yeah, the beginning of book 4 there, his famous speech. That's definitely something we'll talk about today. But any other thoughts on Eve here? Like, especially with what I just said, there she wanted her space, like to work by herself, get away from Adam for a little while, right? Why tell a story that way?
Maybe she wasn't quite as codependent as we thought.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right there, Sherry.
Is it so much that, or that Satan got so much into her head that he made her feel, I don't know, like he gave her like a negative confidence, maybe. Not saying that she wasn't capable, because he says, she was clearly capable and smart enough. She just took the back seat to Adam, and that and just like she just fell in line. So maybe Satan just got into her head. Like, that's why Adam didn't want to separate, because he knew she wasn't, I guess, as strong-minded as he was, and knew that Satan would be able to he'd be able to get to her a lot easier if they were apart from each other.
Right. So the build on what you just said there too, Timmy, some of the stuff that happens in between, the devil actually gives her a dream of her eating the apple. Right. So before she actually sins, she does dream about eating it. So that raises the question, right? Are we responsible for our dreams? Right. But
Didn't the devil whisper in her ear every night, like trying to get control of her mind?
Right. Yeah, he puts these thoughts into her subconscious mind, right, which makes her dream about it. So whenever we talk about dreams, all right, dreams are usually like our repressed thoughts through the day, right? If you take sort of like a Freudian view of psychology. So before she actually sins, she dreams about the sin. Well, is dreaming about the sin actually a sin? Right? I guess that's a question.
Didn't she like convince herself that it was okay because it wouldn't have been put there? I mean, between the devil and her subconscious, she had convinced herself that it was okay. Like that God good. Wanted her to taste that. He wouldn't have put it there, and not like that he wanted them to have knowledge or something. like between the devil and her conscience. Like she was in a fight with, like she was being led to do that.
Yeah, the devil's speech to her in book 9, right? Part of his rhetorical appeal here is he kind of appeals to her vanity a little bit, right? He's like, look, you're pretty awesome, right? God told you not to eat from that tree, because if you eat from that tree, you'll be just as powerful as God then, right? So God has selfish reasons for not wanting you to eat from that tree, right? That's kind of, so he kind of like kisses her butt there a little bit, right? He kind of, he kind of smooth talks her a little bit, and then says, hey, you can be just like God if you eat from that tree. So he definitely smooth talks her a little bit there when he's the snake.
And that snake being so smart too, like that was part of her argument too. Like, this snake is talking to me because he tells her I eat it. And look, I can talk. Like that was part of her.
Look at my knowledge.
Yeah, he said it made me so smart I can talk and whatever. So he put up he appealed to her vanity,
Big
her
influence on
her
her.
curiousness, like everything. All of her senses, he appealed to everything to get her to.
Right? We see there the devil in the story as being a very powerful person of rhetoric, right? We talked last class about, do you feel sympathy for him or not? Well, right here we see his silver tongue come out, right? He knows how to convince her. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to convince Adam as easily. Who knows, right? But he knows that he's got her as sort of a easy target. Arguably, Adam's eating of the apple in the story is just as boneheaded as what Eve does, right? Right? I mean, you guys know with classic misogyny, right? Oh, you women, right? Eve ate the apple, right? It's your fault. It's your fault, the reason why the world's the way it is, right? Well, Adam didn't have to eat this apple, right? It's made pretty clear in this that he had a choice. His argument is he couldn't imagine life without her, right? He couldn't imagine. Adam's afraid of being alone here. He doesn't want to be alone. He can't imagine life without her. So he kind of goes down with the ship here. That's why he decides to eat the apple. God could always create him another woman, right? So Adam willfully goes down here. You guys might know in certain tellings of the story, I think in more of the Hebrew Jewish tradition, there actually was a woman before Eve who didn't want to be with Adam, right? Her name was Lilith, right? So God kind of like smote her out of existence, and then created Eve. So in some tellings of the story, Eve's actually the second woman. So we definitely get a very insecure Adam here. Right?
Lilith went to hell, right? Is that the way? Was she a demon? Was she that came to Adam?
She was the first woman created. Like I said, she didn't want to be with Adam. So I don't know what happened to her from there, right? If she was the first person in hell or if she was just smitten out of existence, right?
Okay.
Some of you guys might know more about that than me.
She didn't get sent to hell because she didn't want to be with Adam, did she? So whatever. Be pretty
Well,
messed up.
She defies God's will, though, right? God created
Yeah.
her to be Adam's companion. So, like her choice, right? She goes against God's will. So,
To hell she goes.
right? It is a little bit messed up, right? Maybe that's why they cut it out of the Bible, right? For the Christian version of the story, right? I'm speculating here. I don't know why they cut that out of Genesis for our version. Like I said, in the Torah, right, in the old Hebrew tradition, that's the story. So, what do you guys think about Adam here, right? You guys, especially with his decision to eat the apple after her, right? Thoughts on Adam here, his insecurities.
Not to be vulgar, but it sounds like he needed to grow a set and say, listen, woman, you ate this fruit. It doesn't mean I'm going to. You do you, I'm going to do me. But I've always said she sold us out for an apple. Imagine what she would have done for a Klondike bar.
Right. That's the ultimate question in life, right? What would you do for the Klondike bar? So,
I mean, Klondike bars are pretty good though, but
mhm.
hell of a lot better than an apple.
I wonder what kind of apple it was. I wonder if it was like a Granny Smith or I wonder what kind it was. So,
May have been an apple pear. They are amazing.
I used to have an apple tree out in my yard, and whenever they first come off the tree, they're real like I don't know how to explain it, but they're really good. You're not that good, but good nonetheless.
I kind of agree with you there, Sherry. You're right. He could have stood up for himself. God would have probably rewarded him for it, right? But he willfully chose. So, going back to what we talked about last week with book 3, right? Remember, God said he created man to be free to fall, but he says the devil can't be saved because the devil's that's his nature, whereas mankind was tricked. Now, was Adam tricked here? Right?
I don't think so. I think he went into it willingly with his eyes wide open.
I agree. He could have chose to do whatever he pleased, and he chose to eat it with Eve.
Yeah, well, if he's already been, you got to think there's one man and one woman. If the woman literally chooses nothing over him, he's already in a bad situation. So he's not in a proper state of mind. So, I mean, he's probably thinking, what the hell? You know, if I don't do it, she's probably going to leave me too.
Yeah, and in the
Again,
middle.
what you said was true earlier about Lilith. He could have been insecure and was like, well, what if God ain't going to give me another chance with another woman and this is my only way out?
Right. Yeah, in the middle chapters of this that we didn't read, like Adam and God actually have a conversation in Paradise Lost. Right? Adam's like, "Hey, I need somebody. I need a companion here. I mean, I'm bored." God's like, "Well, what about like the dogs and the elephants? Right? Like, aren't they enough?" Right? Adam's like, no, right? I need someone to intellectually converse with. So that then it goes into the process of God creating her from his rib and all that. So we
Well,
got
I'm sorry. Where they say God's he's an all-knowing God, wouldn't he already know that Adam is going to ask for this?
right.
So it definitely shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, because he's the one that put it in him to need that companion, to have that want in his life.
Right. So that again raises the question, right? If a man doesn't need a companion that badly, right? If God set Adam up to fail too, right? If he didn't think that he could get through the world by himself without feeling that overwhelming loneliness, right?
I think like we were created to need anyhow because our sinful nature of needing and wanting bigger, better, and wanting more. So I think Adam needing or wanting Eve and Eve wanting more. I think it's just in us anyways, but I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say God set us up to fail, but I think God created us to want him, maybe, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to like explain it, because he gives us, you get the choice to either follow him or not, but it's like, do you want to want me? I don't know.
Now, I see what you're saying, Shanika. Like he could, like, what would be the point of creating like robots, right? That would serve him no matter what.
Right.
I feel that it's human nature to be codependent.
How so?
I mean, it's just my take on it, like that. Not many people feel like, it's like you have the the want and the need to have someone with you. Like you don't think of it, but you really truly depend on others to help you get through the day. It's not saying that that people ain't like, not that people don't have self-worth, but I'm a very codependent person. I've realized that, like, I don't like being alone.
I think that's like even everybody. Like my mother-in-law just recently became widowed, and then not recently, probably about 3 or 4 years. But she wants a companion. You get lonely. And I think that's like with every man. I think, and even a woman, when she's like, oh, I'm so independent. Yeah, you may have that mindset, but at the end of the day, I think back in your mind, you want to have another person to make you feel good, to make you feel wanted. And then after so long of age, you don't want to have that dating life all the time that you get tired. You just want to be able to settle and like, okay, so I finally can come home. I don't have to look and search and play the whole do they like me, do they not like me, what are you into, what are you not into, but just needing and having somebody. But I think everybody wants to need someone, even when they have the mindset, oh no, I don't, because I'm so independent. I think it's just in our nature to want and have to need somebody. So I agree with Timmy about being codependent.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with what any of you guys just said. I think that is in our human nature. So we're not solitary creatures.
But I think that we should strive to be interdependent versus codependent, which means I can be with somebody and be happy, but I can also be by myself and be happy. I don't need somebody to make me happy. Asking somebody to make you happy puts a strain on them that is unreal. You might be able to make me laugh, but you can't make me happy. Happiness comes from within.
I agree with that. That's what I always tell
And
like my husband, if my bucket isn't full, then I can't give to you. So I have to be able to fill my own bucket before I'm able to give to somebody else.
I don't know, like maybe just the feeling of being with somebody else can make somebody feel more whole than they feel whenever they're alone. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I absolutely agree. I mean, you have to be able to find your own happiness. Or, that's like they say, you can't, if you're not happy with yourself, how can somebody be happy with you?
Right. If you're codependent, right, that's almost
Yeah.
a form of addiction in a way, right?
Absolutely. It's the same as depending on drugs. It's just a dependency.
Do you know most of the ladies that I serve, truly drug addiction is more of a secondary. The first thing is generally relationships. And you can tell it when they do their case histories that they go from one relationship to the other. And it's because they're looking for something that they can't find within. So maybe that was Adam and Eve's problem. They both were looking for something that they couldn't find within. And he thought, well, if she's gone, then I'm just SOL.
Right. Despite living in this awesome garden, right? That's beyond our imagination, even to kind of wonder like how awesome it is. Right. He's got all this perfect stuff in his life, right? But still without all he still can't be happy, right? Despite the fact his whole life's perfect. Right. So I think that's human nature too, right? No matter how good some of us got it, right? Most of us still aren't satisfied. So well, however way you see it, Adam sure blames her, right? For everything that happens in this story. He definitely points some fingers here after the fact. Right. And there's some very famous in book 10, there's some very famous misogynist passages. Right, where Adam's kind of putting out like, you damn woman, right? You caused all this, right? What's going to come of us now? We might as well kill ourselves, he says at one point, right? Better to kill ourselves than have to go through all these punishments that God put out for us. So he's very quick to point the finger, right? Here, despite the fact he willfully chooses to do it, he points the finger like, oh, you didn't have to leave me that day in the garden, right? That was your choice. You're too weak to do that. It's your fault, right? So, so he definitely is very quick to point the finger here.
Even in the Bible, like Adam even blames, like at one point he blamed Eve, and then he even blamed God, like, well, you gave her to me. So
Right.
I mean, is it really my fault because she talked me into it? So he never really took like, oh yeah, so I ate it.
Right. Maybe it's how we guys are, right? We're very prideful ourselves, right? We don't like to admit when we're wrong, right?
Yes, that's where it comes from. Adam. Yeah, see, so there's gives me another thing to point at whenever something goes wrong.
There's even a saying, isn't there? Pride comes before the fall. Isn't
Mhm.
that a saying?
Damn that Adam.
Yeah, the 17th century when this thing was written, I mean, there was lots of these sort of misogynist attitudes about women percolating around. I mean, you guys thought ancient Greece was bad for misogyny, right? The 17th century was just about as bad. Right? We can kind of see that reflected a little bit here, right? Just in Adam sort of dressing her down, right? Blaming her for all of his problems. Right? You women are the root of all evil, right? I would have never done this if it wasn't for you.
And she admits that she done wrong. Like she admits that she messed up and is willing to take whatever punishment is coming to her. Like she's okay with it because she knows she done wrong.
Right. So she's more willing to face up to her punishment than Adam is. Adam's just like, we might as well just kill ourselves. She doesn't really have any understanding of like when God says, oh, you'll have to have children and have the pain of childbirth and all that, right? She doesn't really seem to, I guess at that point in her life, she couldn't really grasp how that would be. Maybe she can't quite wrap her mind around everything that's going to transpire.
I agree.
And I wonder how long they were actually there before all of this transpired. Was it like 7 days after she was created? Were they there for a few years? How long before the devil was able to sneak into the garden?
Right. Yeah, that goes back to that question about creation, right? In Genesis, when God creates the world in 7 days, is it a literal day like we think of time now? Or does time work differently for God? Like some people think the earth's only 6,000 years old, right? Because they quite literally think that a day is a day. Some people look at it more broadly and think, well, time works differently maybe for God. So,
Well, the Bible says that it does. It says that a day to God could be like 1,000 years.
And we don't know how many times he might have made something and destroyed it, like something like Earth and whatever. Like, we know he destroyed the dinosaurs and things like that. So how many times did he make something and maybe wasn't happy with it and did away with it? And I had never heard about Lilith either. So like that right there proves to me that maybe there was more created than what we even know or could even understand.
right, it's a vast universe out there, right? Like, even if we think about Milton's conception of chaos, right? I mean, exactly right. Who knows?
I wanted to ask you about the bridge and chaos, like what that was about.
Okay.
I read it, but I didn't really understand it.
Yeah, so basically, the devils have to have a bridge to get to Earth. So after the first sin and death, then build the bridge from hell through chaos to Earth. So that almost gives like the demons a portal where they can infiltrate the earth easily.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's pretty much like their pipeline. Sin and death build the pipeline
Okay.
in between the realms, so to speak.
Yeah. Because they're here. They were here until judgment, right? See, death, the people, his children, who the devil's children or whatever, are here on
Right.
earth. Yeah.
Yes, this is called allegory, right? Whenever you put like a concept like sin or death and you make it into a literal character, right? That's called allegory. Like I said, that's what builds the bridge. Like whenever God says you're all going to die, right? Because of you ate from this apple, that allows them to build that bridge in between hell and earth.
Okay. And I also he tilts the earth on the axis, so we have cold, and that's part of the punishment too. We have cold and hot, extreme hot and cold, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Eden is this tropical paradise, right? So like weather will be one of the things they'll have to brave when they leave. Right? Like in Eden, right? There was not even any need for clothing, right? Because they were innocent. Everything was warm. They didn't even need it to protect themselves from the weather. So the clothing will become important later. So does the sin and death thing make more sense now that I explained it?
Yes, thank you.
Like Satan's kind of a scout at the beginning, right? He kind of scouts out the wilderness, so to speak. Then the sin and death literally build the bridge after him. There's lots of other ways we can take this now. We can talk about let's talk about what Eden was like before the fall, and then what Eden was like after the fall. Eden's our setting here, right? But it almost becomes a character, like in the fact, with the way that it is. And so in Eden, right, Milton describes it, right? Like we get lions, right, hanging out with like bison and stuff like that, right? Predator and prey are kind of hanging out, right? There's nothing like that going on there with even animals eating each other for food or whatever. Nothing like that's going on. The snake is literally walking. The snake isn't on its belly. It's literally like up walking around in this thing. I think, can you guys imagine how scary that would be, right? A snake on two legs, like walking around. The snake's an innocent animal here, right? I'm definitely going to be interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. God holds it accountable for being possessed in the story. But snakes literally up walking around. Adam and Eve work. Like they're not just laying on their butts all day. They work in this version of the story, right? God puts them to work in cultivating the garden. They're literally out working in the garden, keeping it from being a wilderness. Right. So whenever you guys hear about stuff like how should we treat nature? The Christian argument is, right, going back to Genesis, man is the cultivator, man's the steward of the earth, right? So we see Adam and Eve working here. their whole life isn't just fun and games. We also have very strong depictions of sexuality here between pre-Eden and post-Eden. Every time I teach this thing, I like to get a little raunchy with it. Right? I like to explain it this way: like pre-lapsarian Eden with sex. Right? I like to compare it to the missionary position. Right? After the fall, that's when the real kinky shit starts. Right? That's kind of like that's pretty much how Milton describes it in the story. Right? You know, the real lustful, kinky stuff starts right after the fall. Before the fall, they make love, right? It's nice and tender. Right? After the fall, that's when the rough stuff starts, right? So he quite literally describes it that way here. I don't know what you guys thought about that, but he's very blatant in talking about even like how stuff like sex works in Eden. So, I don't know, thoughts on any of this, how Eden is constructed, especially with this stuff?
I think it's like that's funny. I can see where you're going at with this. But like I think Eden is more just sweet, kind, patient, loving. And then I mean they did get kicked out of Eden, so all sin was coming to them. So I guess their mind was wandering. You get a little creative. That's funny.
Right. They quite literally explain it that way here, right? You know, like they say with amorous intent, right? They start pollinating each other right after they both eat. So it's quite a night after the fall, right? Other thoughts about this? Are you guys surprised that this is in here? I've always found it to be a little surprising, right? I mean, none of that stuff's talked about in Genesis, but you have to assume that was part of it. It's interesting that a Puritan author, right? The Puritans were very hardcore conservative about that type of stuff, right? It's very interesting that he's so frank about it in this telling of the story. I've always found that to be a curious part of Paradise Lost. They say too that some of this misogyny that we've been talking about, that might have actually leaked out from Milton, because Milton had gone through a pretty bad divorce right around the time he wrote this. So maybe he wasn't quite feeling women right around this time, right? Because he's probably, some of that was probably on his own angst, maybe. But not just about sex, but what about any of the other stuff that, as far as Eden goes, surprise any of you all?
I think it was a little surprising that the devil was able to get in quite that easily. You would have thought that it would have been harder for him to enter than what it was.
Right. Yeah, we this is a good segue over to you helped us here, Sherry. This is a good segue over to talking about the devil. Yeah, like it is very easy for him to enter. But I told you guys last class, one of the things to think about in Paradise Lost, the devil when this thing starts out like this great big titan. All right. So by the time he actually gets to Eden, he becomes more and more ridiculous. Right? He has to impersonate a cherub to even like sneak down there, right? Because the angels are watching over it, right? God kind of puts them on their watch. So, but he actually kind of has to impersonate being a cherub to even go down, to even go there. Uriel, I think, is the angel who lets him slip by accidentally. So whenever the Renaissance, they thought about stuff in terms of class like this. So like even when it came to like angels, there were different subclasses of angels. So you had like archangels up on top, and cherubs were kind of like the weakest form of angels, right? Whenever you guys see like angel whatnots in the stores, like the cherubs are kind of like the little baby angels, right? That's kind of like what they look like. So Satan actually has to go from being like the biggest, baddest archangel, right, to impersonating being like one of the weakest ones to even be able to sneak by here. So that's almost begins the beginning of his downfall here.
But think also how clever that was, because nobody would have thought this big burly archangel was going to come rolling up in here like a cherub.
Right, very deceiving and sneaky. Right, Uriel could tell something was wrong because like the light of God like wasn't on the angel's face. Uriel kind of was weirded out a little bit by it because he tells Gabriel about it. Gabriel and Satan have a standoff at the end of book 4, right? Like you're getting ready to like see a boxing match or something, right? Satan kind of like runs away with his tail between his legs, right? He's afraid of Gabriel. Gabriel is usually like the strongest angel, right? That's like the angel of angels. Like wasn't it Gabriel that appeared to the Virgin Mary and said, I might be wrong, but was it Gabriel who appeared to the Virgin Mary and said she would have Christ?
Yes.
Right, so you can imagine these two were kind of like the angels up in heaven, right, before the war in heaven. So Gabriel kind of like sends him packing with his tail between his legs. So the fact that the devil, right, this, who's throwing out all this rhetoric, right, it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, right? The fact he kind of runs away from Gabriel like a coward, right, is very telling here in the story. When he whispers in Eve's ear, he's a toad on the ground. That's how he sneaks by to do that. He's impersonating being a toad. You know what does he finally resort to? The snake. Right? He possesses the little snake in the garden. So you guys can kind of see his gradual downfall through this whole thing. The angel of light, right? The greatest archangel, being a toad, the greatest archangel to being a cherub, being a toad, being a snake. So we kind of get this linear progression of he's devolving here, right? He's going from something great to something not great. So Milton is very quick to describe that here, right? Talks about how his features are diminishing and whatnot the further we go. So I'll ask you guys this question: were all of you guys still on team? Were some of you guys still on Team Devil? Right, the further you went through this, or did you guys kind of see like he's kind of like falling apart here? I forget who it was last week who was so on Team Devil.
Somebody, the person who messages you that don't talk was saying something about it.
Right. I remember.
That's probably who you're talking about. I've been off his ship since last week, so.
Right. I remember you weren't on the ship, Tammy. It was Nicole, I think. I remember she was on Team Devil.
Yeah, he was in my he can go to hell stage before we got out of class last Thursday.
I don't know. She was here. She might have disconnected or something. Maybe she'll be back.
Man, I missed last week's class. It sounds like it was a good one.
It
was one of the best
excellent.
It was one of the best
It
classes
was
we had all
excellent.
year last week.
I think the devil is just trying to just at this point, it's like try anything. He's so just have so much rage and anger and hate and just jealousy, and he's just trying to get back at anybody and everything and trying to just do whatever it is. Just I think he's like trying to test God too. Like, well, if I can get these people to do this, what will you do to them? Or will you do the same to them like you did with me?
Yeah, like somebody just in a jealous rage, just throwing everything, throwing the book at, just throwing something at everything, hoping something sticks.
Right. The more and more he does that, the more sort of pathetic he looks the further we go through this. Right. What he starts out in and what he ends up being, it's a pathetic cycle down. So I've always found it hard to root for him the further we go through this, right? Just because it is pathetic, right? That he goes to this extreme to get back at God. God shows we get the final comeuppance here, right? Devil goes back to hell at the end of book 10. He's kind of bragging about it, like, ha, I did it. Right? I ruined God's creation. Right. And then what's God do? He turns them all into snakes slithering on the ground in hell. Right. God purposely turns them into snakes, showing how pathetic they all are. Right. So God gets the last laugh here, right? They think they pulled one on him, but God turns them into snakes slithering on the ground.
Let me ask you, like where it talks about the tree and when the snakes go to take a bite, then it just kind of disintegrates. Is that the same tree from the Garden of Eden, or to be symbolic of that tree, or is it just a coincidence?
I'm not sure actually, Sherry. Like the fruit turned to dust, right? Yeah, so yeah, I'm not. They're eating some type of fruit, right, to kind of like poke fun and mock the whole thing, right? So yeah, and God definitely gets the last laugh here. And he shows how pathetic they all are. Right? Depending on how you read God in this thing, right? You can view that as God, like some people view that as God being spiteful himself, right? Like, oh, I'll show you, you ungrateful brat, right? It depends how you view God in the whole thing too. All right, it's depending on how pathetic you think Satan is at the end.
For me, it was like, as I read it, it felt like, okay, so you tempted her with this fruit and she ate from it. You caused the downfall of man. And so now you get to live with this fruit tree for the rest of your days, but you will never really taste the fruit of this tree. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just how I read it.
Right? No, I think you're spot on there. Now we also get there that the snake is punished, right? If there's anything in the book I think is kind of messed up, it's that. Like, why was the snake punished? Was it the snake's fault that it got possessed? Right. So I don't know if any of you guys have thoughts about that.
I have, like, I don't know. This is what I was thinking though, because it says that all creatures obey God. But if all creatures obey God, why did the snake get possessed? So I'm thinking like maybe the snake was the rebellious one, that it allowed the devil to possess it, maybe, I don't know, or just didn't like it. I don't know, but it was my thing. Like, why was it that he chose the snake? And if all animals obey God, why was it that the snake possessed?
Yeah, I think they describe it in book 10 as it's naturally cunning and deceitful and stuff like that. So that's its natural quality. So that might be it, Shalika. Like, it's naturally like the phrase snake in the grass, right? It's naturally like that. That's its
Yeah.
nature.
I'll come back with
Like a spineless, like a snake. Yeah, like
Right.
there's so many sayings about snakes. As I was gonna say, whenever you, so I was thinking before you went into it, it just seems like there's always something about a snake. There's never anything good said about a snake.
Then I think it deserves to not have any legs or arms, which I don't like snakes anyhow. So that's what it gets.
Snakes and
Right.
spiders.
I always thought it was fitting that he used a snake back at Eve whenever they all say that snakes are backstabbers nowadays.
Say that again, Lauren.
I always thought it was fitting the Satan used a snake to get back at Eve whenever everybody nowadays says that snakes are backstabbers.
Right. Yeah, in the Bible, right, it explains it like it's a serpent. Right? It doesn't say it's Satan or whatever. It's the Bible. If you read the Genesis story, it describes it as being a serpent. So it's interesting here that we get the devil possessing the serpent. Yeah, I've got the whole, in my version of Paradise Lost, it has the whole Genesis story in here. Like, I was reading over it before class, and it doesn't say the devil tempted her. It said the snake did.
Maybe God wanted it to happen to tempt them.
How do you mean there, Jesse?
Well, maybe he wanted to tempt them to see if they would if they would listen to the devil, well, not the devil, but the snake, the evil, to take the fruit or not, or see if they would take listen to God. If that makes sense, how I said it.
Right.
Well, if everything didn't happen the way that it did, then it doesn't start that ripple effect of what created life and the life that we live and everything. So how God already knew everything was going to happen. It's basically like, okay, what if it didn't happen this way?
I might be living a perfect life now.
Yeah. Be a lot more simple. But I mean, you know, say if Eve isn't created, then what? I mean, definitely less stress on me.
Right.
Are you guys
But-
going to have the babies? Are you guys
Huh?
going to procreate the earth?
No, I'm just gonna stay by myself.
I doubt it.
You've had your fill of companionship over there, Timmy.
Yeah.
And you
No
got me thinking
comment.
about Lilith. I'd like to know what happened if Lilith would have stayed in the picture.
You can't say that all women would be evil because I mean, you still hit on 99% of them. No
Nicole-
offense, big fan, big fan.
Nicole, I was looking for you a minute ago. I asked the question, are you still on Team
Yeah,
Devil?
we're having computer problems. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking who's still on Team Devil this week. The further you went
Oh
through,
no. No, I said that at the beginning. Like at the first part of it, yeah, I was, but when he showed his true colors, no. Like I really feel bad for Adam and Eve both, especially Eve, but I feel bad for Adam too. Like
Not one woman.
we were going through you guys were talking about human nature earlier. I don't know if it's that or just whatever, and as we were we've had class, I was sitting here thinking about like the mistakes that I've made, and when I was younger, like I've been raised right, and then I would go to church and then I would kind of fall away from it, but I always had that background behind me, and I knew what was right. But I've done a lot of soul searching while we've done this book, so it's definitely been beneficial in that way too. So, but no, I'm not Team Devil anymore.
right?
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say being Team Devil, right? That's everybody's emo phase, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a phase, right? We get past it. So.
Yes. Yeah, you grow, and hopefully you get wise.
Yeah, he has. I would be remiss to cover Paradise Lost Book 4 without talking about a speech. We need to talk about that a little bit. He gives a soliloquy at the beginning of Book 4, right? It's almost like Hamlet giving a soliloquy on the stage, right? Satan kind of gives this soliloquy, right, where this is what you guys mentioned a bit earlier, where he kind of feels jealousy and things like that about Eve. This speech that he gives is one of the most famous passages in all of literature. This is a very, very famous passage. It's about Book 4. It's about line 70 or so. If you guys want to turn in your books to where I'm at, Book 4, line 70-ish. It's at the very beginning. I'm kind of going to start it in the middle of the passage. Let me find a good starting place here. I might as well just read the whole thing. So about line 33, the passage starts. O thou that with surpassing glory crowned, lookest from thy sole dominion like the God of this new world, at whose sight all the stars hide their diminished heads. To thee I call with no friendly voice, and add thy name, O sun, to tell thee how I hate thy beams, that bring to my remembrance from what state I fell, how glorious once above thy sphere, till pride and worse ambition threw me down. warring in heaven against heaven's matchless king. Ah, wherefore he deserved no such return from me, whom he created what I was in that bright eminence, and with his good upbraided none. Nor was his service hard. What could be less than to afford him praise, the easiest recompense and pay him thanks? How do? Yet all is good proved ill in me and wrought but malice. Lifted up so high, I deigned subjection, and thought one step higher would set me highest, and in a moment quit the debt immense of endless gratitude so burdensome. Still pain, still to owe. Forgetful what from him I still received and understood, not that a grateful mind by owing owes not, but still pays. At once indebted and discharged. What burden then? Oh, had his powerful destiny ordained me some inferior angel. I had stood then happy. No unbounded hope had raised ambition. Yet why not? Some other power as great might have aspired in me, though mean, drawn to his parts. But other powers as great fell not, but stand unshaken from within or from without to all temptation's arms. Hadst thou the same free will and power to stand? Thou hadst. Whom hast thou then or what to accuse but heaven's free love dealt equally to all? Be then his love accursed, since love or hate to me alike it deals eternal woe. Nay, cursed be thou, since against his holy thy will chose freely what it now so justly rues. Me miserable, which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath and infinite despair. Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell, and in the lowest deep, the lower deep, still threatening to devour me, opens wide, which the hell I suffer seems a heaven. Oh, then at last relent. Is there no place left for repentance? None for pardon left? None left but by submission, and that word disdain forbids me, and my dread of shame among the spirits beneath whom I seduced with other promises and other vaunts, than to submit. Boasting I could subdue the omnipotent. Ah me, they little know how dearly I abide that boast so vain, under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell with diadem and scepter high advanced, the lower still I fall, only supreme in misery. Such joy ambition finds. Say I could repent and could obtain by act of grace my former state. How soon would height recall high thoughts? How soon unsay what feigned submission swore? Ease would recant vows made in pain as violent and void. For never can true reconcilement grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep, which would but lead me to a worse relapse and heavier fall. So should I purchase dear short intermission bought with double smarts. This knows my punisher. Therefore, as far from granting he as I from begging peace, all hope excluded thus. Behold, instead of us outcast, exiled, his new delight. Mankind created, and for him this world so. Farewell hope, and hope farewell fear. Farewell remorse. All good to me is lost. Evil, be thou my good. By thee at least divided empire with heaven's king I hold. By thee, and more than half perhaps will reign, as man ere long in this new world shall know. Then we get the pathetic stuff happening. It says, thus while he spoke, each passion dimmed his face, thrice changed with pale ire, envy, and despair, which marred his borrowed visage and betrayed him counterfeit of any eye behold. But heavenly minds can such distemper foul or ever clear. So he lays it all out there in that passage, right? He talks about, why can't I ask for forgiveness? He says, wound where dead, you can't heal a wound that's so deep from deadly hate. Right? He knows that he's past that point. Right? He could, even if God said you're forgiven, he knowed he would do it again. Right? So if that's his nature, he knew he would do it again. So he might as well say, that's when he kind of accepts his role, right? He knows, he says, I am evil, I embrace thee, right? I don't have a choice, right? That's how I am. I can't help it. Yeah.
You know, in book 10, when he's talking about the Garden of Eden, he talks about how beautiful the earth is and how that it could have possibly been his, and all of that, and that it's more beautiful than heaven. And you can tell there, I think, that he is maybe remorseful, sorrowful, or just despisable, because he's like, this could have been mine, but no.
Right.
Sherry, I caught that in a few places where he was like questioning himself about what he had done. You know, if he could, even if he could go back and take it, like there in like almost every chapter that we read, there was a place where he like questions himself. Like, but like you said in that one, in that passage, he embraces it. Like yeah, I was I don't know, but yeah, he embraces it in there, but in other places, like he was kind of wrestling with himself, like even if he could ask for repent, like maybe wanting to ask for repentance, but he knew he couldn't, something like that. Like,
yeah, he knew he could ask, right? But he knew he wouldn't mean it.
yeah. Hmm.
No, that's a great passage. That shows a lot of self he does have a lot of self understanding, right? He's not in denial here. Right? He's not in denial. He's aware of his shortcomings here. He says, "How hard would it have been?" Right? All God wanted was for me to praise Him. Right? How hard would that have been to do? Right? I had life pretty easy up there, but I have to be the one in charge, right? I don't want to be subjected to a king. I want to be the king. So yeah, that's a very Shakespearean type of soliloquy from him there. I mean, Milton was a couple of generations after Shakespeare. Like Shakespeare was writing in the 1590s and the aughts of the 1600s. Milton was about 60 years after. So you can kind of feel that Shakespearean influence here a little bit with that type of soliloquy that he gives.
I noticed something too. I wanted to ask your opinion on it. He mentioned something about the Egyptians, and he goes through and mentions, I don't know if it's like Greece or Rome or something, or if he's talking about the poets. I can't remember, but it stuck out that these are things that no longer exist.
Are you talking about like when he talks about how demons are impersonate for the gods before? So like the Greek gods and the Egyptian gods and all that.
I think that was earlier. It could be, but I know he mentioned something about Egypt, and which it could, was that in four?
I remember that being in book 1. I don't remember it being in 4.
Well, this was this reading. I noticed that Milton mentioned something about, I know Egypt or Egyptian. He said something about him, and then he was talking about I don't know, Athens or something. Shoot, Greece or Rome in something, and I went in the footnotes, it said something about Plato, and it hit me that these places no longer that they no longer existed. Like they were either conquered or fell in some way. And I'll look it up and ask you next class, okay?
All right. Yeah, there's so much to this text, right? So, yeah, so there's a lot of nuance here. Yeah, the English did look back to the Romans, and especially for a model of empire, right? Like the further we go in English literary history, right, the more they kind of like reminisce on the good old days of Rome, right? So why was that? Because they had their own empire. Like the English Empire was the biggest empire in the world at one point. Right? The sun never sets on the English Empire. So that's a subject for if you take a Brit Lit class, right? But even like the way that Americans have always dealt with like race problems because of slavery and stuff, the Brits deal with that because of the way that they colonized a bunch of other countries. So like that'll be, if you take a class on English Lit, that's a big theme of a lot of like later English Lit. Right? The fact that they colonized India and Australia, right, all these different places, and the way that they look at people from those places, right, that's often very racist and stuff. So the Brits have their own form of racial problems that Americans have never really dealt with because we've never really colonized a lot of stuff. So yeah, I taught Dracula in another class this week, so that theme has been on my mind, right? Because that's a pretty big theme in Dracula, right? Lauren, I want to call on you. We read Frankenstein, right? So does Frankenstein feel more complete now that we read Paradise Lost?
I kind of get now why he read Paradise Lost. I still have some like blank spots as to why he was reading it.
Right. Remember, the monster was observing the family, and like the very first book he read was Paradise Lost. And he just happened to discover it. So he felt the same angst about Victor, right? That Satan felt about God and stuff. So yeah, well, if you guys ever read Frankenstein, Paradise Lost becomes a big part of that book. It's the very first book that the monster reads when he becomes literate. It's like he feels angst about his creator the same way the devil feels angst about God in Paradise Lost. So that's a pretty interesting bit of literary history, and it's directly referenced in Frankenstein that the monster reads Paradise Lost, and that gives him his inspiration. So how do you guys feel about Paradise Lost after we finished the whole thing? Definitely the most challenging thing we read probably in the class. Right? You guys feel like you took away an appreciation of it, even like maybe you picked up some religious stuff that you didn't know before.
I
Yeah.
thought it was really interesting to see it from a different point of view. But, whenever it ends, I mean, it just comes back to full circle. Like I figured that it might change my mind maybe a little bit. Obviously, it's not going to make me change my mind completely because, I mean, of my belief system. But no, I mean, the devil is who he is. And I mean, I think it just makes him seem more shady than you already think he is, I guess, if that's even possible.
Right.
Excellent, excellent book, though. Excellent story.
Yeah, like that's an interesting question. Like how much of like what we think about the devil and whatnot comes from Paradise Lost and not actually the Bible itself. Right. There's not many passages in the whole Bible that talk about the devil. Right? You get the stuff in Job, right, and then you get references to him, very vague references to him in a couple of other books. Like I think Romans calls him like a devouring lion, right, out to consume, things like that. But you can count on two hands how many times the devil is actually mentioned in the Bible. Right. So it's interesting that we get so much of like what we think about the devil, right, is maybe it comes from Paradise Lost. And it's kind of maybe that's kind of percolated into into the religion, right, from a book that's outside of the scripture. Right. So that's a thought that I pose to you all. Right? Like how much of what we think about the devil comes from stuff that's not even in the Bible, but stuff that's outside of it. Like I think a couple of weeks ago, I told you guys the story about the harrowing of hell, right? When Christ goes down to hell and breaks everybody out, right? In between Good Friday and Easter. Well, that story is not in the Bible. Right? They cut it out, but it's almost become part of mainstream Christianity today too. So you can kind of spin webs all day about that stuff, but it's interesting stuff to think about. Lauren, I know you said at first you had a hard time understanding Milton. Did you get more used to it the further along you went?
As I went along, I got more used to it, but I still thought it was very challenging to figure out what the heck he was saying.
Right.
I agree 100%. Oh my God. What is this man doing?
Yeah, he's got a very extensive vocabulary. I mean, the man was brilliant. I mean, even in his day, he knew all these old languages. I mean, he knew Greek and Latin. I think he even knew like Hebrew and Aramaic and stuff like that. So the guy was very well read.
Yeah, you notice as you read, you can like it rubs off on you how intelligent some of these poets are and everything. Oh, they don't shy away from letting you know.
Yeah. He's definitely not shy about it, right? Yeah, he throws a bunch of references out to various stuff.
I don't know if anybody else got this, but as I was reading it, I could see, and I said when we first started this that it was good to hear somebody else's interpretation of things. But like I could read the thing. There was some things that was like what we know, like that's what's in the Bible, and then there was other things that you could tell, like you said, that he was well versed in the Bible, in the his religion, I guess, and then you could almost tell what he was putting in there at times. Like I could tell it like at times, and I'm like, wow, it was really interesting to to hear somebody else's point of view and perceptions and things on the Bible. And it also, like I said, I question everything. So it was good to hear other people, and like this class, other people have questions and wonder and things. So I just wanted to point that out.
Right. Yeah, I think it, even for a person of faith, I personally think it's healthy to question things, right? Because if you do and you come up with answers, right, your faith's stronger. It's not just blind faith at that point, right? So, I like to think of it that way. So some of y'all think that the liberal college professor has corrupted you after reading the story, right? Right. The famous accusations, smear campaigns against college professors that were trying to indoctrinate you to think radical thoughts. So,
which I'd mentioned it before. I think it's just a thing of opening your mind. That's all it is.
yeah,
This is, I mean, and it's, it's been a long time since I've been in school, but this is by far the most interesting college course I've taken in my life, by far. I'm not taking many English, outside the 101 and the 102. I might have took another English class. I don't know. But I mean, 101, 102, it's just that. Well, 102 is literature, but 101's all that annoying, garbage you got to do for regular. Yes. But it's, yeah, absolutely entertaining. And it's the most entertaining class I have this semester. Definitely a good break from math.
Yeah, math's definitely no fun.
I know this is off subject, but I got to take, I thought I was graduating, but I need some more electives. So do you teach any more literature or Englishes or?
And next semester, I'm teaching a bunch of stuff. I'm going to do an American Lit class next semester.
Didn't you say something about a 231 or something? Or
No, that's.
Yeah, the 231 is non-Western Lit. I don't teach that one. Professor Irfan teaches that one. Yeah, like I don't know anything about the Japanese and the Indian Lit and all that stuff. Like I'm completely clueless on that type of stuff. So she teaches that class. Yeah,
I'm gonna
had her
double
for
check. I
101.
got May. I'm supposed to graduate in May. I mean, I never know how that stuff's gonna work out. I mean, if I have to end up getting another elective or something, I'm gonna look up and see what kind of courses you're offering. Do you do was it American literature?
Mhm.
Or do you teach that class?
Mhm.
Okay, and that's what do you say? That's a 2.
That's 201.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, American
I think
literature.
I've had that. Do you do anything higher than this one?
Well, all the 200s are the same.
Okay.
Second year courses or whatever.
Yeah, but
All right. Well, if I take you like once, twice, 3 times, like next semester, be easy on me, okay?
That goes for both of
I mean,
us.
we're just trying to graduate.
yeah,
I was so mad today. I was hurt. I've cried and everything because I
Yes.
thought I was done, but I'm not. Well, I mean, besides the masters, but yeah.
With this degree, like we worked hard. We don't even have an associate's degree.
right.
We've been 5 years in college with nothing.
Yeah. So we thought, well, we get our bachelor's in December, but yeah, I got my transcript back today and they're like, you need some more electives.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept up on that stuff so much.
Yeah,
So
we were.
I don't
Never
know if
fails.
COVID or if they changed it.
screwed us.
I don't know.
They just
but
screwed us.
yeah. So I'll be back at Southern because Lindsay's way too expensive.
Right.
Did you
Yeah,
ask about a
anybody
board of
plans on-
governors?
Sorry.
Huh?
Ask about a board of governors.
Yep, that's what I got into, or board of is it the board of regency or board of governors? I'm for sure. Think of the regencies first and then the governors is after, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I got into, but they ended up talking me into doing this to get a third, go ahead and finish my associates and get a third one. Cause that's exactly what I went back to school for, was the board of, yeah. I sent out an email to you earlier. Did you get it?
I did.
You did?
I did not know.
Oh, okay. Can I talk to you after class?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I had to work all week and and weekend and whatever. Listen, I'm crazy and I completely forgot about Monday. I'm going to try to get that up this weekend. Okay.
What's your discussion post?
Yeah.
Yes, we've got like exiting exams going on. We've got kids. We've got
Jobs like it and practicum
jobs.
It's nuts. Like my
Yes.
life is nuts.
Yeah.
And then we got 2 other classes. So
Take your time. I'm not going to get to them right away anyway. So take your time.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Is I typed up a paper Monday, but I think I typed it up on the things for the people that missed last week, because I done why could God forgive Adam and Eve but not Satan was the last one. Was that for the ones that missed the Zoom last week?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. See about 600 words on that. God no. But I was looking through it today and I said, you have got to be kidding me. So I done a paper on that instead of the topics you gave for Monday.
Yes, that was for the non-Zoomers.
Take it and just upload it on. Did you do it on a PDF or like on your computer?
Yeah, I have it, but
Just upload it. Just take it and upload it to where you're supposed to.
right, but yeah, because it's under the I was like, and then I got looking today and I was like, it's on the wrong, yes, I was gonna say it's on. That's what my email was about. I was like, can I just use this instead? So I had to type up another one.
You can. You can.
Can I?
That's fine. Yeah.
Oh,
Don't
thank
feel
you so
bad.
much.
I'm crazy.
But it's
too,
only 500 to 600 words though, instead of the normal, and at 1,000 if you miss a Zoom.
Well, you didn't miss Zoom last week, so
I know, but I'm just saying, like for the normal paper, it would only be 500
Mhm.
words, right? But I'm just saying, like, just to follow the topic of what everybody else had to do it on, should I extend it, or would that be good where it's over the 500 words?
now
for
you can just
Monday?
leave it where it's at.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, to answer the question earlier about what I'm teaching next semester, doing American Lit to the Civil War. I'm doing theater appreciation and I'm doing film appreciation. So I'm going to do all 3 of those. So if you guys haven't had like your art or music class yet, either the film or the theater would count for that requirement. So yeah, I've heard the art class here is a pain in the ass. So yeah. Take me instead. So there's my
we had to
pitch.
drive to Williamson to take that class.
And it be the same one that he's talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
probably.
hard. He's been doing it for like, I don't know, 15 years, and it just keeps growing and growing. You can tell by each module or whatever.
It's like 70 PowerPoint things.
and so many, like 15 assignments a week. Like
Mhm.
it just keeps growing throughout the semester. It was ungodly. I've
And
never seen anything like it.
He expects it to be done like immediately, and he has it graded, and if you don't have it in, then you're screwed. So,
Yeah, so
It was hard.
yeah.
the theater class will read a bunch of plays. going from the
Now,
Greeks
we
up to the
had-
present.
We've had film and we've had theater.
And he was awesome. Like,
Yeah, he was a good.
you got a hard candle to stand next to on that one. He was a really good teacher.
Would you have him at Logan campus?
Yeah, we had him for film and theater.
Yeah, so when I came here, I kind of took that over. So I might have cost that guy his gig there. So yeah, so
I think he had another one. So.
I think he was looking for it. Like, I think he was he knew it was looking for it. Like, I don't know, but yeah.
But if anybody plans to go to Lindsey Wilson, make sure you have took everything possible through Southern, because Lindsey Wilson is so expensive. I mean, it's like, what, Nicole, $10,000.
We're taking out the max amount of loans that you can take out, and we only get back like a little bit.
Like
if
$800.
if anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's expensive.
And plus student loan, or got student loans and Pell Grant. So
You would probably, now I don't know if Lindsey Wilson is straight online or not, but you'd probably be better off if you could try to do something online through West Virginia State.
Well,
Because-
if we'd have known about that 2 years ago and know that about the call, like,
and their degree doesn't offer the counseling part that ours does. It's a little complicated.
West
on
Virginia
the-
States don't?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
West Virginia's, there's only covers like the social work side, the human service side, and Lindsey Wilson's covers human services and counseling degree.
Yeah,
And
That's
it's
where they
hard.
get you at then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you know, even with that degree, you have to work under a doctor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
someone to be a
have to go-
counselor.
Yeah, we have to go get a master.
for this. But I don't know if you guys noticed with Paradise Lost, but Milton sometimes like writes words and he cuts a syllable out. So like untrimmed, for instance, right? He spells it UNTRIMM''D. So he cuts the E out. The reason why he does that is he keeps his meter consistent. So like it takes out an unneeded syllable out of your line. So you can actually do that. That's called apostrophe. You can cut a syllable out of your line to keep your meter in a good flow. So if you're ever wondering why he would do that, sometimes like untrimmed or dimmed or something like that. If he spelled it dimmed, DIMM''D, that keeps dimmed as one syllable instead of two. So that's a trick. That's a trick that you guys can do when you write your poems.
So you can do that on any word ending in ED? Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Wow. So it just like replaced E with apostrophe. Just
Mhm.
do
It
like
keeps-
apostrophe D. Wow.
That cuts a syllable out. Right.
Oh, that'll help out a lot.
I'm gonna have to write that down.
Yeah, me too. Like how they
Yeah, I do
that
too, but I
one
guarantee I'll
that you
forget
gave
to.
us, the I forget what he says, who's like, isn't that a way of breaking something down? Like, instead of saying whosoever or whatever, like saying whost or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah. So take a page from Milton here. Cut some syllables out. That'll help keep your lines consistent. Milton actually insults. I was going to say at the beginning of this, he actually insults rhyme. Milton doesn't believe in rhyme. So you guys notice reading this, it doesn't rhyme. So.
But you want ours to rhyme, don't you?
Of course. Yeah.
So are we going to discuss that any at the beginning of class next week, that sonnet, or no?
I've already covered it. If you
Yeah.
want me to review, I can, but
I was just curious because what are we going into next week?
next week we're starting 18th century. So we're going to read a couple of things from the French next week.
Okay.
A play called Tartuffe, and Candide is our other one next week. So
See, where's
Are
this
you
at?
giving them to us on PDF or whatever?
those are
online?
in the textbook.
The text.
Personal
We're
modules and course content.
We're actually going to volume 2.
Let's look at grammar review.
So you guys know how when you got the textbook, you got 2 volumes. We're going to volume 2 next week.
Commas, splices, run on sentence fragments, and comment type those after watching my video.
You must not know that he's just rambling away.
Who, me?
Yes.
And it pops up
No,
your
I
video
just
every
think-
time you do that. So
I can't help it. I was looking up that grammar thing.
Yeah, we can still see you. It's cute.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and call it there. So we'll see y'all next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. You have a good week.
you too.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Be safe.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.